Hello everyone, the topic for today is supervising older employees for the young leader. Just a quick outline of what I'm going to go over today, a quick intro, an overview of the issue, my initial interview, as well as the research I conducted, what this issue can cause, and handling the issue and potential outcomes, as well as my recommendations. Quick introduction, my future goal is to be a young supervisor. Picture over here is of me and the CEO of DTE Energy. Through my work experience, I came up with the potential issue of I do want to become a supervisor at a young age, but I will be supervising people older than me, and this might cause some issues within communication between the two. In this, what issues may arise if your employee is older than you? Potentially some communication issues, some ego issues, possible outcomes of proper and improper handling. Obviously, some negative as well as some positive things could arise if this is depending on the way this is handled. In my current work environment, management tends to be older. The majority of the workforce is 40 years old. They're usually more experienced, the supervisors, which makes it very hard to progress in the company. Quick look at my current hierarchy. Everyone here on this chart is well over 50 years old. Typically, the higher we go up this scale, the older the people are. For my initial interview, I interviewed the store manager at Good Burger Restaurant. Mr. Bazzi confirmed my suspicion that there indeed is a communication issue when the supervisor is younger than the employee. He currently has 6 employees that are older than him, and his main topic was that it was an ego thing. The older employees felt like they were more experienced, and felt that they were more entitled to the position of egos. He drew out a quick chart for me which showed the flow of how the employee progresses. They start off as a trainee, then an employee, then a shift team leader, and a store manager. Mr. Bazzi followed this exact flow, which allowed him to become the store manager. Quick overview of my research. Chart over here shows the distribution of ages of the managers and supervisors in the state of California. You see here the larger yellow color is people that are 40 plus, and the red is the people that are 30 to 40, which is just a small portion. And from 30 and younger is about 1%. Basically, the research showed that not all people want to be supervisors, and the people that do want to occasionally are not fit to be supervisors. The second chart shows the typical progression of an entry-level employee. They might start off as an intern the first year or entry-level employee up until the first 5 years. But when you get to the age over here where it's year 6 to 7, someone could either elect to be a senior employee or a supervisor. And this overlap is common where they tend to have the conflicts. What this issue can cause, an inability to implement important decisions. Older employees attempt to discredit what the supervisor is trying to enforce. This could cause a lack of control, and the older employees may be offended by the wrong things. Like older employees might be offended if you send them an email instead of talking to them in person. Potential outcomes of handling and mishandling. When this issue is properly handled, this could lead to effective communication. This could increase a team's creativity. This allows for contributing to broader based decisions and adds an element of fun by allowing the different age groups to socialize together. Improper handling prevents the supervisor from giving instructions. It prevents the supervisor from developing his employees, and it negatively impacts morale and performance, and it also causes hardworking employees to leave the company. Based off my research and my interviews, the basic recommendations is to set aside your ego and to actually listen to your employees. It allows you to connect with the employees, sort of develop commonalities, which eases further communication, and to allow older employees to contribute. Mr. Bazzi mentioned in his previous flow, he allows the shift team leaders to occasionally train the employees or the trainees. So the 6 that are older are able to feel like they are holding a leadership position even though they aren't. And lastly is to implement a flex time schedule. Usually older people tend to have families to take care of, so by allowing them to leave early or work from home, kind of gives them a positive mood. And that's it. Any questions?
I had a question. The communication error you mentioned, does that ever occur vice versa?
So usually when the supervisor is older than the younger employees, it's like a norm that it's like expected that your supervisor is. So that communication barrier that's commonly developed from this, it's not existent within.
So if you're interested in a leadership position in a bigger company, why do you interview a restaurant manager?
So a restaurant follows the basic like management principles, but at a smaller scale. They still do their procurement, their sales, their marketing, but it's at a much smaller scale where it's easier to like pick the small issues out.
Why would you say there aren't that many young leaders in the industry?
A lot of it is just like I mentioned earlier. Either they don't want to or they're not fit to. It's an intimidating thing, and people tend to shy away from anything challenging.
How do you think you could overcome this ego issue?
Well, I mentioned earlier you could allow them to contribute, or sort of rely on their experience to benefit the company. Like go for them whenever you have a complex issue. Sort of make them feel like they're contributing a lot to the company. Yeah.
Does it become a problem when the older employees aren't like as tech savvy as the new ones?
It does when, like I mentioned earlier, there's like the email issue where the older people might get offended if you send them an email instead of going and talking to them face to face. Or another example is like, let's say taking notes in a meeting. The older people tend to like write things down compared to the younger people that will type things on their computers. So when the younger people are typing things on the computer, the older people might get offended by this and think that they're not giving them attention. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great.